Hello everybody, my name is Andrei Cotai, and together with my colleague Tiberiu Boros, we're going to have a short discussion about a project we recently open sourced. First of all, a couple of words about us. We are the Security Intelligence team. We are a part of Adobe Security Coordination Center, and the purpose of the team is to do data science research in the security field. We mostly focus on reactive security, and that basically means identifying threats that cannot be detected via conventional ways. In other words, we use the logs and the security data we collect from Adobe Assets, and we try to find anomalies and bad stuff. So what's One-Stop Anomaly Shop? One-Stop Anomaly Shop is a machine learning framework aimed to discover anomalies in a given dataset. The open source project represents an implementation of several Adobe Security Intelligence Team patents and white papers and other projects. The goal of OSAS is to make it as easy as possible to experiment with different datasets, algorithms, and feature combination and to find the most balanced combination for your use case. But most important, OSAS is going to try to answer the following question. Why is an anomaly an anomaly? But to better understand this, let's talk really fast about the anomaly detection principle. So the principle is simple as pie. Anomalies represent extremely rare events. And there are some well-known algorithms for outlier detection as local outlier factor, isolation forest, reconstruction error, and so on. But many times when we detect an anomaly, we do not understand why it is actually an anomaly. So coming back to the anomaly detection principle, let's look at the picture on the slide and try to identify the anomaly. And most likely you're going to say it's actually the brown egg. And you actually might be right. But if you look at the picture, you also have some examples of eggs not wearing masks, eggs that are actually sneezing, and so on. So the question becomes, which is actually the anomaly? So the way you actually prepare your data is going to impact what kind of anomalies you are going to detect. So let us try to bring some more context to our egg situation and briefly describe each one of them. So we see a couple of eggs which appear to be in love. One is sneezing. One definitely has some eye problems, or some of them are actually angry, mad. Some are scared, and so on. Now, this is important because the fact that we have a brown egg is not the most exact feature anymore. The sneezing egg actually becomes pretty important. The egg that is crying is also unique, and so on. In other words, what we propose is the following. We'll describe each observation, egg in our case, with a set of labels, and then we're going to let the anomaly algorithms decide which one of them are actually anomalies. And the way we generate the labels actually becomes the entire magic. Now, I'm going to let my colleague take over and do a quick dive through the labeling options that we have in One-Stop Anomaly Shop.
Thank you, Andrei, and hello, everybody. When we designed OSAS, we actually had in mind being able to process semi-structured log data, and we are referring to whatever can be found in access logs or error logs from Apache or Tomcat, user logins, Hubble data, and so on. This information is semi-structured because you can infer a couple of attributes from it. From Apache, you can look at the logs and you can extract the timestamp, the IP address, the URL, the response code, and so on. And one very important aspect about this type of data is that it contains many attributes with unbound values. For instance, the IP address is unbound. It has a really large value space. It can have a lot of combinations from all over the world. The URL also can include some components that are dynamic, such as IDs, parameters, and so on. And the thing about this type of attributes is that they actually generate something which is called a large feature space. By comparison, the number of examples that you can have in a manageable data set, which can be downloaded, processed using machine learning, is relatively small. So these two factors combined generate something that is called data sparsity, which is actually an unwanted effect for machine learning algorithms, which renders them to overfeed the training data and makes them generalize poorly on previously unseen examples. To cope with this, OSAS reduces the large feature space by employing a two-step approach. First, it does tagging on a raw data set, and then it runs the anomaly detection algorithms. The tagging is done using a couple of predefined recipes for various attribute types, and also it is able to handle free-form text data. It's able to extract advanced features by combining different tags. So the first set of tags, we call those simple tags. It's basically composed of multinomial fields, numerical fields, and field combiners. Multinomial fields are fields that take discrete values. So process name is probably a discrete value field, right? Because you have a limited set of processes that will usually run in your environment. Parent process name, username is going to be from a limited set of possible value combinations. So in order to detect them, we count all the unique values inside the training data, and we expect to have less than 10% unique values for a specific attribute. In order to label this type of attributes, we build a statistical distribution of the values, and we assign the labels based on the rarity or the probability of an attribute with a specific value. Let's say you have process name.
A frequent process will not generate a label. A less frequent process will trigger rare process value, and infrequent processes will generate either extremely rare process value or previously unseen process value.
Now, this model actually requires pre-training, and it is stored with our model. Next, we have numerical fields. We do the detection in a similar manner. So we count all the unique attribute values. We expect to have more than 10% values. All of them have to be floating point numbers or special value of none. And whenever you have more than 10% unique values, we say that that's a numerical field. Also, if you have a numerical values inside the field and you get less than 10% unique values, they are going to be treated as multinomial fields. The model requires training, and it is stored with our data. Finally, we have the field combiners. So basically what the field combiners do, they try to generate some generic or abstract features by combining multinomial fields together. So you might have something like the process and parent process combined, or username and process combined. And whenever you have something like Apache running Netcat or SSH, it's probably going to say that you have a really rare process, parent process value in your data set. The labels are assigned similarly to those of multinomial fields, and also the model requires training and it is stored. So we have text fields. Text fields are actually, they fail the test for multinomial fields. They are not numerical. They are free-form text. So it can be anything from, URLs, in case your website takes a lot of parameters, or they can be some type of comments, errors, something that's really unbound and can look like natural language in some way. In order to label this type of attribute, we compute something which is called a language model. The language models are really common in natural language processing. You can build them using at character level. So you can have windows of 3 to 5 characters, or you can do some simple tokenization, remove all the special characters and split over spaces. In that case, usually the size of the engrams, it's smaller. It's not 3 to 5 like the characters. You go to 2 to 3, 2 to 4 or something like that. Based on the language model, for every attribute value inside our data set, we compute something which is called perplexity. And based on these values for the entire data set, again, we compute the mean and the standard deviation. And whenever we process the new data, we compute this value, and again, we assign numbers based on the mean and standard deviation, similar to the way we do for numerical fields. This model also requires training, and it is stored. Finally, we have another field generator type. It's called expert knowledge field generator, and it tries to enable human experts input their knowledge into the model. This type of label generator takes a configuration file. It looks for specific keywords or specific regular expressions, and assigns label based on the way it matches the data. This model does not require any training because it is statically built, and it does not require to be stored with the model. OSAS provides out-of-the-box support for 4 anomaly detection algorithms. So we have isolation forest, local outlier factor, SVD-based anomaly detection, and statistical engram anomalies. The important thing is that we apply those anomaly detection algorithms on the labels that we generate in the previous step. They don't see the raw data. They don't look at attribute values. They just look at the tags that OSAS is doing before the data is fed into those algorithms. And the first 3 are part of scikit-learn. If you want to know about the way they work and how they establish something is an anomaly or not, you can go ahead and read the documentation and maybe the white papers associated with this documentation. The last one, the statistical engram anomaly, is something that we built especially for OSAS. What it does, It basically computes all the possible combinations of 2 and 3 tags that we generate previously, and it computes the probability of observing those tags together. Now, based on this probability, we compute the negative log likelihood, and whenever we see a new example, we build all the possible tag combinations, and we sum over the negative log likelihood, which basically becomes a rarity score for that observation. OSAS has 3 main modules. On the left side, we have the data acquisition module, which uses a CM4 runtime and a statically compiled dataset for training. The middle section is called the labeling or data grooming module, and it applies labels for the observations in your dataset, the labels we talked about earlier. And finally, the right section is the scoring module, which uses one of the 4 anomaly scoring strategies to assign scores to the examples. And during the training, we use a static data set, frozen data set, you might call it, to compute statistics and build the language models, compute the occurrences of attribute values, and so on, learn how to assign labels. We label the entire training data set, and then we feed this data to the scoring strategies. And then at runtime, we just apply all the 3 elements of the pipeline and finally get our events with associated anomaly scores. So I'm going to let Andrei take over from here.
Now that we got a better understanding of OSAS labeling algorithms, it's time to actually do our POC. And our POC is going to be composed of 3 steps. First, we're going to make OSAS up and running as a Docker image, and take in consideration that OSAS contains a web interface, and also it has a default installation of Elasticsearch. We're going to test OSAS in its default installation, and remember, OSAS is an anomaly detection algorithm. And then we're going to transform OSAS into a security tool by adding custom expert knowledge to OSAS and compare the tailored OSAS with the default installation one. Now, let's get OSAS up and running. Cool. So, starting from our Git repository, there are 2 ways you can actually start with OSAS. One is to use the precompiled image, or secondly, you can actually build it locally. You can also use directly the OSAS scripts without the Elasticsearch or the OSAS web interface if you choose to do so. Now, this is my working place. Basically, here I have a data folder where I have my data set. This data set was already prepared with me and has inserted some malicious commands, especially for this POC. I'm going to pull the last Docker. Already have up to date, and this is the Docker command you have to execute, and you already have this command also in the Git page. A couple of important parameters here. First, you have to actually expose a couple of ports. You have to expose the OSAS web interface. You have to expose the Kibana web interface, and you also have to map a local folder from your working device with the Docker installation. That's the way you're actually going to share your data sets. Cool. Running this, going smoothly. And if you go back to the Git page, we can actually use the links from here, and we can use and see both services in OSAS. First, what we actually provide by default is a web shell via the web terminal, and you can fully execute all the commands on the Docker instance from here. Now, OSAS actually has a little more components. The OSAS web interface has 2 other options. One is actually to automatically run the entire process with no customization with just one press of a button. Or secondly, the second option is actually to run the entire pipeline step by step. And we're going to explain the pipeline in the following moments exactly. What is it made of, what are the steps, and what we have to do. We also have a default installation of Elasticsearch, as I mentioned. The only customization is actually the dashboard, and we have a dashboard made expressly for OSAS. So basically, when you execute it and push data, that dashboard is going to auto-populate really, really nice. So now we're going to speak about the 3 steps you have to do in OSAS. First of all, you have to run the autoconfig. And the autoconfig scope is actually to look at the data set, look what features we have, and make recommendation regarding how those fields should be processed and what kind of combinations have to be done there. After this is made, the second step is actually to train the pipeline. So basically, you're going to construct the model as suggested in the configuration file. Also keep in mind that the configuration file also contains what kind of anomaly detection algorithm you're going to use. Now, once the pipeline is run, you can actually execute the pipeline, and it's going to execute the model you just trained on the dataset. You also train the model or on a totally new dataset. That depends for you. For experiments, most likely you're going to use it on the trained dataset. So that's OSAS in a nutshell. Everything up and running there. So I think we're actually ready to go to the second stage of the POC. As we saw, it is easy to get one-stop anomaly shop up and running. In order to add data to the project, you just have to put a dataset to the folder you shared with the Docker instance. So now let's go through all the phases we mentioned in the first part of the POC and configure a one-stop anomaly shop head to toe. Starting again from the Git page, we'll start a new fresh instance of one-stop anomaly shop. Now, we're going to use the console for this one, and we're going to go to the steps I just mentioned before. Let's check that we have the working dataset, and it's here in the folder we shared with our machine. And after that, first we're going to run the autoconfig, as I mentioned before. So the autoconfig goes to the dataset, looks at the features, and tries to get some information about the features, and is going to make a recommendation regarding how those features should be processed. After that, it's going to also try to identify all the possible combination between the features. Now, this script takes as an input the dataset, and it requires as an output file the configuration file where it's going to store all its information. Take into consideration that the anomaly detection algorithm is also going to be present here. So let's check. We have the configuration file created, and if you look in the configuration file, you can see really fast all the fields that actually have been added and how they're going to be processed. And really important here at the end, you're going to see the anomaly scoring algorithm being used. So if you want to change this one, you have to do it manually from here. Now, the next step is actually to train the pipeline. So now it's going to take all the information from the configuration file. It's going to take the input dataset that I made the configuration file for, and it's going to train the model. And the model file, which is going to be created, is going to contain the anomaly detection algorithm, but also the models necessary to process the data, the features, and some of the information regarding those features. Okay, I have a typo here, so running that really fast. You can see actually this goes really fast, and the anomaly scoring itself doesn't take too much time, but that's also because the dataset we're working is pretty small. It has like 5,000 observations. To run the pipeline, it's a pretty similar command. It's to run pipeline. The only thing it's going to take an extra parameter is going to be where we're actually going to store the results. Now, the results themselves are going to be stored to file, but they can also be stored. They are also going to be sent in the Elasticsearch we have on the default installation of OSAS. Also, taking into consideration the run pipeline can be also executed on new dataset. It doesn't have to be the same dataset, right? Like maybe you train it for 30 days and you want to test the new pipeline on the data you collect today, right? So as long as the data has the same schema, it's going to work. Okay, so the data was sent to the Elastic. Let's go to Git and open the default installation of Elasticsearch. So admin, the password. You can see I'm a little nervous. I made a typo here. Okay, no, I don't want to store the password. Thank you very much. No, this either. Let's go to the dashboard I mentioned before. And now we're going to see that the dashboards have been populated with the data we generated. So you can see the anomaly algorithm there, the number of observations, and some metadata regarding the anomalies I generated. Now, how this works? Basically, for each data point I have in my data set, I'm going to generate some labels and I'm going to generate an anomaly score. So I'm not going to keep only the anomalies. I'm going to do that for all my data points, and then you can see the data from here. And we have some information like what's the maximum score of an anomaly, what's the minimum score, and really interesting is actually how many unique labels I have, because that's what I mentioned, right? The labels are the entire magic here. Now, I also really like this score histogram, because it's going to tell me the distribution of scores per anomaly in my data set. And you can see really fast that most of my data is concentrated in the lower part of the scores, right? So that's really easy for me to set a threshold and say everything bigger than 1000, it's interesting for me and I should investigate only those. You have here some information regarding which are the most common labels and which are actually the rarest label in my data set. Also you have a dashboard here that's going to present what are the rarest anomalies with the biggest score and what's actually the labels associated with them. Cool. Now, what I want to do, I want to go and see all the data. And in my data here, what I can do really fast, actually set a filter, as I mentioned. I want everything that's bigger than a particular score. So I'm going to say, give me everything which is actually greater than 1000, because that's how I saw from that score histogram. And we have 1000 hits, so a reduction of 80% of the data. And I can do really fast, I can make this look like a table, add the score and add the command. And next, what I want is actually to sort the score by score, descending, and voila, those are my anomalies. And the idea is, I was a little disappointed when I did this POC, because I was expecting my anomalies to be here in the top number of the scores, and they're actually not. The malicious stuff I know I wanted to see here, it's actually somewhere lower in the bottom. So everything malicious is definitely in the top 1000, but they are not in the top 100 or the top 10. And that's because One-Stop Anomaly Shop is an anomaly detection tool. It doesn't know what kind of anomalies you want. It's going to give you the best type of anomalies it thinks it wants, right? So if you can see, I reached like one of the commands I had here. So in the next phase, we're going to see how we can actually transform One-Stop Anomaly Shop in a security tool. So let's see how we can really fast transform One-Stop Anomaly Shop in a security tool with just a couple of clicks and a really fast copy paste. Starting from the Git page again, I'm going to go to a brand new Docker instance, and I'm not going to use the the console this time. I'm going to use the custom pipeline from the web interface, which basically is going to run first the autoconfig. I'm going to select the dataset, give a name for the output file, the config file, and I'm going to hit submit. And it's going to go really fast because, again, it's a small dataset. So exactly the same output as the autoconfig. Now I want to change the configuration file a little more. So select the configuration file, and I have here all the information in the configuration file. I'm going to start by changing the anomaly algorithm, and I'm going to use this time local outlier factor, one of my favorites. I'm going to take out some of the fields I know they do not provide value and combination of those fields. Yes, and at the end I also have some timestamps, and I'm going to take also those out because I know they actually do not provide value. Once this is done, I hit submit, and now I can actually edit it even more. So I'm going to enable some of the expert knowledge label generators that we mentioned before. I'm just going to uncomment them from there. I'm going to change the field name from process to command because that's where I have the interesting data. And I'm going to update that keyword list with one I know it's used by attackers and administrators to actually do stuff on the box, right? So all that list of commands there highlight a potential person on keyboard there. The other label generator is the regex one. It's really useful if you want to do identify IPs or public IPs, different paths and things like that. And that's the entire configuration file. And now I can actually go back to the console to do everything. Let us check really fast. The configuration file is there. Awesome. So now we have to actually execute the next two steps of the pipeline, but I'm actually going to skip that and go directly to the Elasticsearch web interface. Okay, going back to the dashboard. I can see the dashboard was already pre-populated with the data I sent to the new pipeline, and I can see really fast the new detection outlier algorithm there, right? One really interesting stuff is the labels. So this time actually I have 3 times more labels, even though I took out a couple of fields. Also, you can see the scores. Again, remember, each anomaly algorithm has its different scoring mechanism, so they might vary. Really interesting is actually the score histogram. If you remember the previous one, there were some camel humps there, right? Now, most of the data seems to be concentrated around the score of 0. So it's even easier to set a threshold here, or just order the anomalies descending, and you can see really fast which are actually the top anomalies there. Same information as last time. You have the rest labels, and you can see command keyword is actually everywhere there. And what are the top most common labels? Also, we have the same, like what are the top anomalies and the labels actually which define the anomaly. And again, command keyword appears to be there. So the keywords we added with commands appear to have a great impact in the data we generated here. So let's look at the observations themselves, right? So we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to actually filter them anymore. We're just going to create a table with score, command, and also labels. And what we're going to do, we're going to sort them descending, right? Because the top anomaly should be there really, really fast. And when I do this, you're going to see that actually this time some of the interesting anomalies are there, like are the biggest scoring anomalies. Right. There are still other anomalies which have nothing to do with the malicious stuff I was targeting. But that's, again, OSAS is an anomaly detection tool. By using expert knowledge, things really simple like a list of commands or some regexes, you can actually transform it into a security tool. But then again, we did this POC really fast. It's really easy to configure, and you can do this for HTTP servers. You can transform into IDS. We did this for Linux server, but you can actually use it also for Linux environment, but you can actually also target a Windows environment with a different list of commands. Hopefully the POC added some light in what actually one-stop anomaly shop does. And you can see it's really easy actually and fast to deploy it. It's really easy to use it. You can do it from command line. You can do it from the web interface. And it's also really easy to repeat an experiment. You can make a configuration file. You can make multiple copies of that. You can fine tune them as you prefer, and you can train a model for each one of them. In general, there were a couple of things I want to highlight it here. First of all, One-Stop Anomaly Shop is an anomaly detection tool, and it does its best in detecting anomalies. But not all features provide value, and actually might make the algorithm go harder or the anomalies to be more broad. And also, each anomaly algorithm that's there can have different performance on different data sets and use cases. So that's why we highly recommend for you to experiment with data. Again, OSAS is really easy to use. It's really easy to make a model, and we highly recommend it as a research platform, but also as a production platform, because once you have a model file, you can fastly deploy it wherever you need in the infrastructure. That was mostly from us. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us. We are more than happy actually to discuss about One-Stop Anomaly Shop. These are some useful links from our side. The original blog post where we first spoke about this, and also the GitHub page. And we do have like a huge request from you guys. If you can actually go and visit the GitHub page and give us a star, we would highly appreciate it, and it would motivate us to do future work on OSAS. Thank you very much for your attention, and please remember, give OSAS a star. Thank you. Have a great evening.